I'll do that to you. And Django ClassiText and PyMaging. In 2012, he co-organized the Django Con Europe, and in 2000, which was in Zurich, and he became one of the first two non-core developer Django Software Foundation member. Okay, so first let's give a round of applause for Jonah.
Thank you. And thank you, Iqbal, for the introduction. So yeah, Iqbal covered most of those things already. My name is Jonas Obrist. I'm from Switzerland. I currently live in Tokyo. My GitHub page, if you want to check out my other stuff. My Twitter, if you want to heckle me in 140 characters, or my email, if you want to send me more feedback in 140 characters. And yeah, as I said, he covered basically all of it. I'm Django CMS core developer, one of them. I'm actually not the person that wrote it initially. Quite a few people tend to have that idea because I give talks about Django CMS all the time that I actually came up with the idea. That's not the case. I joined it fairly late in the cycle, about 3 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about Django CMS. And before we do, I would like to get to know my audience a little. So who in this room knows Django or has used Django for work or anything? So show of hands, Django users. Okay, most. So who has heard about Django CMS before this talk? Okay, half, if any, if even that. And who has used Django CMS in a website? 1, 2, okay, you two can leave. No, but yeah, good to know. So yeah. And yeah, also before I talk about Django CMS in particular, I would like to clarify what I mean when I say a CMS. CMS stands for Content Management System, and the definition is quite loose, and people classify different things as a CMS than other people. And so for me, a CMS is a collection of content, usually called pages, arranged into a menu. And ideally, both of those things, the menu and the content, can be edited by, well, non-technical or semi-technical users. And yeah, another core developer of Django CMS, Patrick Lauber, at DjangoCon in Berlin 4 years ago, put it quite nicely. A CMS is basically a menu. All the rest, the content and all that kind of fluff, is just, yeah, it's nice eye candy. Anyway, so what is Django CMS? Django CMS is a Django application. And that's also a thing that many people get confused about. They think if they use Django CMS, they can only use Django CMS and that's it. But that is not the case. It's actually just like any other Django application that you can install and put in your installed settings, like, I don't know, Sentry, the blog applications that are out there, all that kind of stuff. So it should be part of your project, and it's not a full-on project, and on top of that you build a site. As you can see from the next few points, it has a heavy focus on being friendly to developers. And in the 2.0 series, which I will not talk too much about today, I want to talk about the upcoming 3.0 series. In the 2.x series, we had a really strong focus on developers, providing you as many APIs and as cool APIs as we can, and let you do whatever you want with our CMS. And we try to be as user-friendly, and with users I mean content editors, so people using the CMS, not visitors to your site. We try to be as user-friendly as possible, but yeah, we didn't really achieve that, which is why we came up with the idea to do the next release as 3.0 and not another release of 2.x, because we want to radically change how content editors interact with our CMS. And it's BSD licensed. The Django CMS is backed by a company, and we have a nice fancy website, etc. So sometimes people think it's a commercial product. That's not the case. You can grab it from GitHub, and since it's BSD licensed, you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. It is the well, from the metrics that I can find, it seems to be the most popular Django-based CMS system. Just by watchers on GitHub. Those numbers are a month old, so they're probably horribly out of date because they go up scarily fast. So we have over 2,000 watchers, over 800 forks, over 3,000 followers. Yeah, those are just numbers. You can look at them however you want. For me, that just means it's scary big. And then, yeah, maybe better than those numbers to illustrate what Django CMS is or how popular it is. Let me just drop some names. So PBS is the US public broadcaster. It's basically their NHK. Mercedes-Benz, we recently found out that their website is built with Django CMS. So that's mercedes-benz.com. There's a bunch of universities. Cardiff is the most, they actually contribute back, so that's why they get listed. And yeah, there's a bunch of big sites, but obviously this list is not complete because being in an open source CMS, we have no idea to know who uses our CMS unless somebody tells us. So the two guys that put their hands up before, would be cool if you came to me after the talk and tell me what you built with it. And then yeah, who is Django CMS? Django CMS is not just me. I'm just one of, I think by now, 7 or 8 core developers. So it's a fairly small team. The project was initiated by Devio, which is a Swiss web agency, and it's still backed and supported by them. And we have about 250 contributors that submitted at least one patch. And yeah, so yeah, I'm about to dive into actually the CMS itself, and to do so I have to clarify some terms because in different systems and different applications they're used for different things. So in the CMS in Django CMS we have the concept of a placeholder. And a placeholder is an area of your website, of your web page, where users can edit content. So your menu would be generated by our system, but the actual content of your website, where you have your text, your images, whatever, that's what we call a placeholder. And inside placeholders, there are CMS plugins, or simply plugins. And plugins, in our case, are not how you usually have plugins into an application or a website that adds drastic new functionality. In our case, a plugin is simply a bit of content. So text on a website is a text plugin, an image is an image plugin, etc. And you can write these yourselves, of course, or use the ones we provide. And there's also the concept of a CMS app. And what a CMS app is, it's simply a very small Python object that explains the CMS how to integrate other Django applications. So you can take any Django application that exposes at least a URL spy and hook it into this Django CMS in about 4 lines of code. So let's talk about features. Yeah, basically we have them all. I have yet to find something that is like something big that is really missing. We have front-end editing, and this is one of the big. This has been around for a long, long time now in Django CMS, for a couple of years. But this is the thing we drastically changed in the 3.0 release, or in the upcoming 3.0 release. And it aims to be a user-friendly UI to edit content on a Django CMS website. Because as those of you familiar with Django itself know, Django provides this nice admin site out of the box. The problem with the Django admin site is for non-technical users, it can be really hard to use or understand. And in a CMS that is very, well, the C stands for content, so content is very important. So you actually, when you edit your content, you would like to see your content in your site. And that's what front-end editing lets you do. You actually are on your front page, and you say, I want to edit this text, and then you edit that text, and you save it. And the cool thing about that is that since recently, you can actually use this in your third-party applications. Like, you don't have to use Django CMS itself. You can just use this whole functionality of front-end editing in your own app, especially in the 3.0 release. I will show you some screenshots later and explain there exactly what you can do. It's plugin based, so basically Django CMS core itself, all it provides you is a menu or a page tree and APIs to work with that page tree. APIs to add plugins, to add content to your website, APIs to add apps, APIs to do all kinds of fancy stuff. And again, this whole plugin system, again, is also usable by your own application. So if you write a blog, instead of using, I don't know, TinyMCE or some other form of input field, you could just use what is called a placeholder field, which turns your blog body into a CMS placeholder, which means you can use all the plugins you wrote or installed for the CMS. So let's say you have a cool plugin that interacts with let's say you have a shop and you have a plugin that can interact with your product database. And you might want to use that plugin that shows your cool products in a really nice way in your blog instead of like copying HTML snippets around or kind of stuff like that. It is, you might have noticed that by now, but it is very, very extensible. That's a really focus point of us, especially for me as a developer. You can pretty much change everything. You can even change the whole way the menu is built. You can modify the menu however you want. You can just get rid of all our default content types and install your own or write your own. You can just hook all your apps you have into the CMS using CMS apps. And there's also a bunch of third-party apps that already provide this out of the box, which is nice. It has because the CMS is basically a page tree, standard Django permissions just don't cover it for us. Standard Django permissions, for those that are not familiar with it, are basically, can a user edit this type? So in this case, that would be a page. But the problem for us is if you have a large website, you might have editors that only are allowed to work on one area of the website. They cannot change the home page, they can change the jobs page if they're HR, for example. So what we did is we built a hierarchical permission system. So you have your page tree and you can say that user has access to this page and everything below. That user has access to only this page and stuff like that. And it uses standard Django users and groups, so at least you can reuse that part. We have workflow tools because CMSs are quite popular in enterprise, and enterprises or corporate customers, they want to use workflows. And what I mean with a workflow is a content editor edits the home page, but before those changes go live and are actually visible to your visitor, somebody else has to approve it. Now you can obviously ignore this bit and just say that everybody has the permission to publish everything. Or you can say that the intern you hired last week, yeah, you don't want them to actually be able to change the homepage without some sort of supervision. So you can say that, yeah, his supervisor has to approve his changes before they go live. We've completely reworked that in the 2.4 release, which was the last 2.x release, as basically to see if it will work the way we intend. So we have a system that actually works in 3.0, because we always had some way to do this, to do delayed publishing and permissions for publishing. But in 2.3 and below, it was so incredibly complex to do this that nobody used it. So we decided to just scrub it and start build that part from scratch again. It is from the scratch up, from the very base up, multilingual, which is incredibly important for us because, well, DBO, the company that builds the CMS, is based in Switzerland, and in Switzerland we have 4 national languages, plus English as a de facto 5th language. So whenever we build a website for a client, they want at least 3 languages. You can actually not remember ever doing a single language website. So everything in the CMS can, if you want to, be used multilingual. That is, the URLs to your pages can be multilingual. So your About Us page would be About Us in English, and maybe, yeah, watashi ni tsuite toka, yeah, in Japanese, in the actual slug. And obviously the content is fully multilingual if you use multiple languages. And it's the actual UI is translated into many languages. And thanks to Twitter user Who Says Ni, the complete backend of Django CMS is now translated into Japanese, which is fantastic. I cannot thank him enough. And he actually promised to translate the documentation too, which should be absolutely fantastic. We're SEO friendly. This is something I don't particularly care about, but apparently many people do care about SEO optimization. So we let you set the meta tags and all kinds of stuff for your specific pages, and just like Django does most of the time, we try to generate really pretty URLs, so Google is happy with us. So that was Django CMS, but now let's talk about what's new in Django CMS 3. Because even with people that use Django CMS, we found out that many people don't know about this upcoming release, so we try to heavily push it. So the first thing we've done is we completely reworked the way users edit content. And the main new thing here is that we don't want content editors to ever go to the Django admin site. We don't want them to have to go there because they would be confused, or many of them are confused by it. So what we did is we didn't abolish the admin. Instead, we embraced it and just put it into the front end. So instead of going, as you would in standard Django, to /admin, log in, and then see the list of your apps with the list of your models, in the front end, in the Django CMS, if you're a logged in staff user, you have a little toolbar at the top. And there you have basically menus where you can interact with the content of your page. And the cool thing is that toolbar is context aware. So if you're on a CMS page, you will get the menus for this CMS page or other CMS pages. If you're on your blog application, you will get an option to add a new blog post, to edit this blog post, to publish this blog post, whatever the app developer thinks is useful. And so the options that the user has to choose from reflect the content on the page, which makes it way more natural for users to interact with it. Also, in the 2.4 release, or in the 2.x releases, we had something we called the Everything Turns Blue mode, where we would actually alter the CSS and the HTML of your content, which worked in most cases, but in a lot of cases, it just broke the user's CSS. And so they didn't use front-end editing, they went to the back-end because, yeah, we mess with their CSS. So we've gotten rid of that. We don't actually edit your HTML. Well, we inject a little bit of HTML, but we don't edit your CSS anymore. So now in our front-end editing, what you see is actually your home page, just with the little toolbar at the top. We've massively simplified and improved the whole publishing workflow. It's now just a single button in the toolbar, and there's no more. There used to be support that you can say that you can actually have hierarchical publishing permissions. So intern A changes a website, asks supervisor B, please accept these changes. Supervisor B accepts them. Then he asks his superior, etc. And it would just go on forever and ever. And to set it up was just very confusing, and very few people actually need multiple levels of approval for this kind of content. So we got rid of that. We also got rid of the whole, there used to be a lot of emails sent left and right whenever somebody requests permissions, and it just really confused people. And so yeah, we've gotten rid of that. Yes, we lost some functionality, but it's functionality nobody ever used in practice. And we had a Python 3.3 support, which is what makes me the most excited about Django CMS 3, to be honest. Well, no, the front-end editing is cooler, but this is actually the part that I made. That's my big contribution to Django CMS 3, is I one day just sat down and went like, let's see if we can do Python 3 support, because we had a Django 1.5 support. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later, but it turned out it wasn't all that hard. And there's a whole bunch more. We've looked at some APIs that were duplicate or confusing and tried to consolidate them. And since it is a major version release, we, at some point, in some APIs, actually had to break backwards compatibility. But it should actually not be that hard. Well, at least as far as we're now in the development cycle, upgrading from 2.4x to 3.0 should be doable. And yeah, so how it looks. First, I don't know if you can see those screenshots all too well. If I have time, I'll try to do a demo later that might be easier to see. This is the old Django admin. This is, for those not familiar with Django or the Django admin, this is what Django gives you out of the box, is this. And it's ordered by Python modules and then database tables in those modules, and not ordered logically by business logic. So if you didn't write the code, it can be really weird why like one model is at the bottom and the other one is at the top. And this is the Django CMS 2 backend. We had backend editing in Django CMS 2, and it's more or less a standard Django admin, except for the lower part, which is our plugins. The thing is, well, even if this was a better screenshot with like that you can see clearer, you would still not know what the content is on that page. So we had this. This is the old front-end editing, and at the bottom you see the everything turns blue part. So in the actual website, that part isn't blue. This is just because if you hover over with front-end editing activated, stuff turns blue. And you see that there's little bars inserted, and yeah, it just breaks so much CSS. So this is how the CMS3 front-end looks. At the very top, you might just see a toolbar, and then it's your website, and that's it. There's no, even if you hover over, there's nothing all too crazy happening. And we also have this, which is the mode to move plugins around. We always wanted drag and drop in the front end, so you can drag your text from here to there, etc. The problem is if you have a large page and large content blocks, dragging them around in the actual like real presentation mode can be really difficult if you have to drag it from the very bottom of the page to the very top. It just doesn't work. You have to scroll forever. So what we did instead is we compressed the plugins all into a single line and just let you drag and drop those around. And then even if you have a lot of content, it's still manageable. And this is the admin in the front end in action. So on the left side, you just see that's basically a change view, and it's a little pane you can drag and drop out. And in the middle, you see a change form for a page. And this is just a standard Django admin view, so there's nothing all too crazy going on there, but it's in the front end, and this changes the title of the current page. So you don't have to go into the admin and then find your object that you want to change. Because you're already looking at the object on your website, you can just say, I want to change that object. So yeah, Python 3 is one of the big features, I think, in the new version, and I just want to talk about how we did that. So as I said, that's basically my little thing in the new version. And the strategy, or there's different way of porting to Python 3. You can run it through 2.2.3. You can actually make 2 repositories and just do it like this if you're really crazy. Or you can just have a single code base that is just compatible with Python 2 and Python 3. And from the very start, it was clear to all of us that that's the only way for us to go, so we can still accept patches and everything. And since we dropped 2.5, we were ready to drop 2.5 support, and we never had any intention to support 3.0 to 3.2. This is actually very, very doable unless you have to work with a lot of text data that you don't know in what encoding it is, which we don't have to because Django handles all that stuff for us. Also, there's a tool called 6, which is a compatibility tool to write code in for both Python 2 and Python 3. We opted not to use it, mostly because in Python 2 and Python 3, the way you can define meta classes for classes changed drastically. The problem is that the 6 helper for that meta class to get compatible meta classes simply didn't work with our meta classes. And I couldn't figure out why. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't use 6. Another one was we didn't just want to add a new dependency because 6 is so tiny and it's not going to change a lot. So instead in CMS utils compat, we just rendered in the little bit that we needed, which is basically the new string types to have those match the correct thing. And yeah, the meta class thing, and that's basically it. There's not a whole lot of stuff in there, actually, which is really nice. So yeah, there were a few problems, obviously, when porting. We have a lot of dependencies, or well, a lot. We have 16 dependencies for our test suite, which is a little bit more than to run the actual app, but yeah. And obviously, before we could even think about starting porting our app, Django CMS, we had to make sure that all those 16 dependencies work. So the very first thing we did is get rid of Pill and use Pillow instead, because Pillow 2.0 supports Python 3, which is fantastic. And then we looked at the other dependencies. Most of them already were in Python 3, like Django, obviously. A bunch of them were actually controlled by us, or specifically me, Django's classy tags, Django Sekisai. So actually, while I was getting ready to port Django CMS, I was first porting those. And in doing so, because those libraries are vastly smaller and simpler, I actually learned quite a bit about how to port or what strategies work for porting to Python 3. And was really good to get my feedback. The other problem was, as I said, the meta classes, that they just, the thing in the 6 source code just didn't work, and that was a showstopper that like blocked me for a couple of days trying to figure out why our meta classes behave different on Python 2 and 3. At some point, I found a blog post by Armin Ronacher about his strategy of porting in Python 3, and in there was his little meta class thing. So I just dropped that into our project and see if it works, and well, there you go, it just worked. That was really good timing, because he wrote that post while I was porting, which is fantastic. And actually, the interesting thing is that most of the Python 3 problems weren't in our core code. Most of the problems that we had were actually in our test suite. Because our test suite has a lot of, for example, strings to compare to the output, etc. So that was just tedious going through all the strings, and where necessary, add a B in front or a U and make sure they're the correct type. But also in our test suite, we use a lot of Python constructs that are, well, maybe not that common in normal applications, like a whole ton of context managers and all that kind of stuff, and look at exceptions and things like that. And it just turned out that that part is harder than actual code. Just normal code we wrote, most of it was already Python 3 compatible, except for a few imports that changed and stuff like that. So yeah, if you want to port to Python 3, and I think it's getting about time that you should think about it if you have a open source project that you don't want to abandon. The first thing you should do is decide which Python versions you want to target. I think there was a talk earlier today about how you can support 2.5 all the way through to 3.3. That is certainly possible. However, my recommendation would be 2.7, maybe 2.6, and 3.3, because 3.3 and 2.7 are pretty much the same except for a bunch of imports and the thing that print changed. So that part is not that hard. You just need a few imports that depend on the version, and you should be more or less good to go. And the thing you really need to have before even thinking about porting to Python 3 is obviously a test suite. You need a lot of tests. You always need tests, like all your applications should have tests anyway, but it's even more important for porting to 3 because the way I ported was just run the test suite. Okay, it fails with a bunch of syntax errors. Let's go change those syntax errors. Run the test. Oh, it fails with import errors. Let's fix those. And just keep running the tests until the tests at least don't error anymore, and then they start failing. And then you look at what actually changed between Python versions that can actually explain why your tests behave different. And this is also the link to the blog post I mentioned before that has some really great tips on how to port to Python 3. And I really recommend you read that if you think about it. So how am I doing on time? All right. Okay, it's demo time. This will likely fail, but I'll try anyway. So to really show you how Django CMS 3 is different from 2, what I first need to do is show you Django CMS 2. So this is just basically one text plugin on a website. And as you can see, like if I go over it, it turns ugly blue. And whoa. If I turn the edit mode off, there's a lot less stuff. There's none of these weird bars in between and all that. And how can I get back into edit mode? Yeah, nope. So if I turn it on again and I edit this, like there's this thing at the top and scrolls out and there's an ugly editor, etc. But yeah, I can change this. I can just do this and save. And then it refreshes. Sweet. But now at the bottom here, well, you see there's this home, and I can't edit this. Like there's no blue thing over it, and that's because that's the page title. And yeah, in Django CMS 2, if you want to edit this, you have to go into the backend, and now you're in the Django admin page, and you're just seeing this huge, weird, confusing form. But sure, let's change the title to Home 2. Save. And now I'm here. I'm like, where's my page? Where's my content? I don't get it. So this is silly. So this is Django CMS 3. And we're already in edit mode, but other than this little thing at the top. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's switch mics. So in 3, the default mode, if you're logged in, is you're always in edit mode, because we don't change your CSS anymore. It doesn't matter if you're in it or not. But the cool thing is, if you now want to edit stuff, instead of getting this blue bar, this blue box, and I don't know if you notice, I can't just click on this, because if I click on it, the blue stuff goes away. I have to like go to the top right and hit this edit marker. But in 3, instead of that, you can just double click. And if you double click, oops, you have to log in. That is weird. All right, you log in and you get your little text editor. We also took the time, took the chance and changed the default text editor, because we weren't really happy with Vim editor or Tiny anymore, so we switched to, I think this is Syk editor or something like that. I don't know actually to pronounce that. Anyway, so now if I want to change the title, this is again the title, and now because of the changes we did, you can also just edit the page title. So you can double click this, change it to Home 2. And now we have the problem again that the screen is too tiny. One sec. That's not what I wanted. screw that, I don't find it. Anyway, and what also before, if you wanted to, well, if you wanted to move plugins around, you basically couldn't do that in the front end. So I want to move this plugin down here. Like I can't drag it, I can drop it. No, I had to go to the back end. Stop logging me out. And a feature that very few people actually knew exists is that you can, at the very left side, drag it and drop it. So we sort of had drag and drop, but it is weird because we told our customers always to be in the front end and work there, but sometimes go to the back end because stuff isn't there in the front end, and they were really confused about where to do stuff. So let's see if I can get this to work. Edit and, no, not draft, structure. Build. No. Yeah, the front-end editing doesn't really work on extremely tiny screens like this one, which is why I just had to do this little hack of making my browser wider. But this is the structure mode, how we call it, where you build your content structure or add new content. And we wanted to separate this from the view where you edit content, because when you edit content, you really want to know what your content is, what it looks like inside your page. If you want to fill in content, you just want to do it fast. And also in this view, you can drag and drop stuff around. So I can drag this picture here, I can drag the Japanese text over here. Whoa. Okay, and change the thing here. And yeah, the flickering we will fix at some point. So yeah, and I have to leave this mode again. So yeah, I can then switch back to the content mode. And yeah, the reason why it flickers is because the content is actually there, so you can just switch between those modes without a refresh. And yeah, now you see the Japanese stuff is on the right, the picture is still there, etc. So, but if I, at the top right, switch from the draft mode into the live mode, the text is still the same. So the live mode is what your actual users see, not logged in users, not admin users, but the actual visitors to your website. And yeah, this is still the same, but I can, as an admin, I can change my homepage and send the link to my boss, and if he's logged in, he can see the changed version, and then if he's really happy with what we did in the draft mode, you can say publish changes. And now the changes are published, they're live. There's obviously also a way to revert back to your previous draft. If you made a mistake and you didn't see it during Q&A, you can go back. And yeah, and at the top here, no clue why it says no. Yeah, you can see the admin integration. So this is just the out-of-the-box stuff. Yeah, the reason why it says none there is because this is not a final release. We're still working on this, so there's bugs. I'm actually surprised that the demo works that well. So if you want to add a new page, you would just go to the page tree. And this is just a normal admin, the backend admin, but we just show it in this little thing and add a nicer style on top of it so it doesn't look as extremely old as the Django admin. And yeah, I can recover, delete the pages, add new pages. If I had more than one page on this example, I could drag and drop them around to build my menu. And yeah, if you develop an application for Django CMS, you can just, there's APIs for you to add new items either to the existing menus, you can even remove them, or just add new menus and buttons and make it so that your admin change forms can be shown in the front end. Or even, it doesn't have to be a change form, it just has to be any view, so you can just make actions that are toggle buttons and stuff like that. So yeah. It looks like I was a little bit too fast, but I hope that's fine. Means we have a longer break. Thank you for listening, and if anyone has a question, please ask. You can also ask me in Japanese, and I'll try to answer in English. For those that are more, more comfortable with Japanese.
I think it's okay.
Sorry, yeah. So Mezzanine, yeah, I can't really comment on it too much. From what it looks like, it seems that they're putting more focus on simplicity or ease of use, as opposed to our strong focus on extensibility and like user friendliness and like developer friendliness. I might be completely wrong there, but yeah, that's basically how I see it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, okay, so the question was when will this be released? This is the question we get all the time since we announced 3.0. My canonical answer is when it's done. I can tell you though that this is not actually true. We have a secret release date, but we will not announce it because, yeah, people will just be upset if we don't meet it, and let's say soon. Definitely this year. Hopefully really soon, because it is getting really quite stable. To be honest, we already start using it. And so from using it, not on production sites yet, but sites we developed right now. So until they go live, it has to be released. But yeah, so we know there's a few edge cases, a few rough edges still to figure out, but it is fairly stable, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Django Shop?
So Django Shop is another project by Devio. The name says Django Shop, so it might sound like it's a shop you can just install and use, and you have your little e-commerce platform. It's not like that, because again, we really love the APIs and developers. So what Django Shop is it's a shop framework for Django. So it gives you a lot of boilerplate that every shop needs, like a way to handle checkout processes, payment gateway APIs, and all that kind of stuff. But you still have to write your own plugin model. So I guess your question is what is going on with Django Shop, right? And so Django Shop is, well, there's not much, well, we will develop it further if we find the need for it, but it actually works really well for us as it is. The previous maintainer of it left the company, so, well, we still maintain it. It's not like we have no maintainer for it, don't get me wrong, but we just don't have the need for development right now, and we don't see a lot of engagement in the community to like just, yeah, maintain it with the help of them. So if the need comes up to add new features or whatever, we will definitely do that. But right now yeah, the project, we're pretty happy where it is.
Does that mean Django Shop is open for if anyone is interested in taking an active role?
I guess so. I mean, if somebody wants to really maintain it and work with it, sure, talk to us. We would always love to have more contributors also to Django CMS. Please contribute. We really love pull requests and stuff.
Okay, do we have any other questions before we go for the group photo session? Okay, I guess we're okay. Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you.
All right.